Unknown. You know we got a guest going on. Stop being an American.
And you know, it's the last day of believing that this isn't a quest. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I am the unknown factor, aka that Wade Wilson of hip hop. I hope that don't have our guest being like, this motherfucker, who the hell does he even think he is? But we'll get to that in a moment, yeah, because you know, if it's the quest, yeah, you know, I got my Zalian brother Jay D-Day Hardaway in the house.
What up, y'all? How y'all doing this evening?
I hope y'all are doing lovely. I swear to God, we just went over it before I started the show, but I feel like I'm going to fuck it up anyways. And as much as part of me wants to fully announce this guest, we're going to do a bit of a combo, Hardaway, because in the house today, it's a pleasure to have a man who has a hell of a length of history, man. For real. Don't fuck with What are you laughing about, Hardaway?
Because you said a combo on this man. Because the name is the still issue.
You know what?
He's just taking as long as he can to avoid having to say it.
I'm either gonna fuck it up, and our guest right off the bat is gonna be like, "This son of a bitch," right? Or I'm not, right? Yeah, because in the house today, Fabian Nicieza.
Almost got it.
Son of a
Almost.
bitch.
Very close. Quest. Very close, Quest. But very well done. I honestly applaud the effort. I disagree with Yoda. There is a try.
Look,
okay?
all I got to say, all I got to say is, Fabian, I'm terrible with names. If you go back for everyone just checking this out, look at every issue or every episode of the questionnaire. I screwed up someone's name somewhere. I'm not good with names. I don't
even called one of our guests a guest from the future. He mixed two guests up, recorded it, and said, "Oh, it was the funniest shit."
You ain't gotta bring that shit up, Hardaway. It's not like that's like on fucking an episode where people would know, you ass.
Well, now they know on this one too. So here's the thing. What keeps you writing?
That's a great question to start off with. Well, first of all, for many, many years, it's how I made a living. So what kept me writing was paying the bills and the mortgage and college tuition and everything else. But I'm at a stage in my life now where luckily a lot of that pressure has alleviated drastically. So what keeps me writing more than anything now is that I'm at a point in my life, and I also think at a skill set level where I just really want to write what I want to write. I want to enjoy what I write. I want to do it less because it's a paying assignment and more it's because it's a story I want to tell or something I want to say or a character I want to write if it's a pre-existing character from, an IP factory. So that's what's keeping me going. And I think that I think I got at least another 10 years of that in me right now because it wasn't until I wrote the book a few years ago that I really kind of refound the passion for writing because it was one of the first times it was like 100% completely my own voice. It wasn't beholden to an editor's needs, a scheduling need, a company's existing character base. It wasn't any of that stuff. And because it was a novel, not a comic book, I wasn't also beholden to an artist and an inker and a letterer and a colorist and making sure that whole thing clicks and making sure that the work is done on a schedule that allows them to do their work, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, working in comics is really like being part of a team, and you got to have your teammates' backs and vice versa. And comics is not that different than a baseball season. It's a slog. It's a grind. You got to do a book a month, et cetera, and it just gets tiring. So what keeps me writing is finally getting a chance to write probably closer to me than anything else I've done before.
That is a phenomenal answer, Fabian. I ain't saying your last name no more, right? But I just want to know, man, based on that, man. And I mean, you've what, Matt? You got a good follow-up? I got a good follow-up.
I got a great follow-up and whatnot. All right. With writing your own novel, and whatnot, I noticed that there's an audiobook. So I went and downloaded the audiobook because I drive an hour to and fro from my commute each day. All right. Were you involved in the recording of your book, like to make it unabridged?
No, they first of all, contractually, I had the right to narrate it myself if I wanted to, but there was no way in hell I would want to hear my voice for an entire book, so I didn't want to subject anyone else to that. We went through pronunciation guides on a lot of characters, a lot of locations, and they sent me several audition tapes that they had of the different narrators that they had in mind to choose. The first book was narrated by Natalie Naudis. She didn't narrate the second book, but again, I got to approve who the narrator would be. I had to like their voice in order for them to hire that person to write the book. But I didn't really get involved in it other than the pronunciation guides for a lot of the character names.
That's dope. Right. Now I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna flip it Hardaway back to the question that he may pop in my head, right? So I mean, based on what you're saying, as far as the novel was nice because you didn't have that whole strain of the industry, you know what I mean? Like you have to deal with these deadlines, you have to keep these characters in a certain order, which I think is one of the reasons you see in the MCU. Certain directors say that it's not actually filmmaking because you have to keep to a certain degree what Kevin Feige says. You can't just go off script and do whatever you want. If there was a character and you could just do whatever with him, man, and I don't care where you're picking this from. I don't give a damn if it's Dracula, though you could technically do whatever you wanted with Dracula at this point. Who would you go with, man? Like a pre-existing character?
You know what? I got to be honest with you. It's a good question, but it's not something I've ever given a single second's worth of thought to as a writer. When I work for a company that has intellectual properties that they own, I've always done it under the parameters of completely understanding what the requirements of the job are, and 9 times out of 10 completely knowing the character involved that I'd be writing, whether it be Doctor Strange or whether it be, Tim Drake at DC. It didn't matter. I knew who the characters were. I never once thought if I could write Captain America without the constraints of Marvel on my back, I would do X, Y, Z with the character. Because to me, that's kind of wasted creative energy. It's using your creative muscles and using whatever creative chips you have in your pocket for the sake of something that's never going to be. So it's not. I'm too practical a person to go down that road. And I know look, it's a good question because I know a lot of writers who do that kind of stuff. I know a lot of writers who try to actually sell those kinds of stories to the Marvel and DC, and the editors just go, "My God, does this guy not going to have a clue?" So I get the inclination or the impulse. It's just not one that I've ever had in 35 years of doing this.
All right,
and it could be because I started my career in the office. I was a 9-to-5 employee at Marvel for 10 years. I was an editor at Marvel. I was Marvel's advertising manager. I understood implicitly what the responsibilities and the requirements of the job were from the inside and the outside. I was also the editor-in-chief and president and publisher of Acclaim Comics for 2.5 years, so I understood what the requirements were to have to run the damn show. Even if it was a smaller show, I still had to run the show. So I had a real early understanding in the first 10, 15 years of my career of how things work and why things work, and why they don't work too, quite frankly. I don't even like What If as a comic book, much less as a premise for thinking creatively about stuff.
You don't like the What If comics? All right, fine.
No, not really. No, I don't. I like. There's What If stories I like, but I don't necessarily like the idea of doing off the wall or non-continuity related stuff, non-canonical stuff, and I also don't like Deadpool and Shakespeare comics either. So there you go.
Great. All right. So, what inspires the creation of most of your characters? Let's start with your novel, Suburban Dicks. What inspires you to create these characters? Personal experiences, or
Yeah,
just...
the first book, both books actually, but the first book came out of a real kind of wild fictional extrapolation from things that were happening in my real life. And this was back in 1993. I had the idea for the book, Lock, Stock, and Barrel, title, characters, beginning, middle, and end in 1995. It just took me a couple of years to write it. So I moved into a house, a new construction development, small block. It's the house the character lives in, and then the main character Andrea Stern lives in the book. It's the block the main character Andrea Stern lives on. That's what I wrote. And we had there was a gun club on the other side of a pond behind our development, and a small thatch of woods. The gun club had been there for 50 years, and we knew that. We were told that when we looked at the plot of land before there was even a house there. And as we moved in, and as we were there for a year or so, occasionally they were nice enough to send bullets our way. Because they would miss the pistol berm, or they'd get a ricochet off the rifle range. So as a community, we tried to stop their outdoor shooting, not their indoor shooting. And we took it to the town council, and we lost at the town council vote 5-4, because the old townies, the old farm guys, all the incredibly white people who'd been in the town for a very long time, and quite frankly, 80% of them who didn't even live in the town but were members of the club, exerted enough political pressure that we lost 5-4. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if we found out something that those old townies did that would result in the gun club closing down? And that was it. That was the fictional extrapolation that became the impetus for the novel. What if someone gets killed today, and it's tied into a cover-up that's been going on for 50 years because someone was killed 50 years ago? And it clearly evolved, and it developed more than that. The gun club aren't the only quote-unquote villains in the book. They're barely an afterthought, because the members are all really older octogenarians almost, and I didn't want to have too much, I didn't want to deal with them too much. So that was the impetus of the book. The second book, The Self-Made Widow, the impetus for that was the death of a very close friend of mine who was in the comic book industry for many years, Mark Grunwald, who was Marvel's executive editor and the writer of Captain America and Quasar. He passed away very unexpectedly at 43 years of age of a heart attack. And none of us knew that he had a pre-existing heart condition. And some people do, but some people knew, but the majority didn't. And then at his service, at his memorial service, somebody joked, what if his wife killed him? Because none of us could believe he could have had a heart attack. He was a vegetarian. He ran like 6 days a week. He was really thin, great shape. So we joked, what if his wife killed him? And I remember going home from the memorial service, turning that into a fictional story. That's my sequel to my book that I've never written and may never write. So I had 2 books in mind before I even wrote a book. And that was it. So the impetus for the second book is, what if a husband dies young of natural causes, and only the investigator, the main character of the book, thinks that she actually the man was actually killed by his wife.
But let me ask you out of curiosity, Fabian. When you were developing these, did you ever think of taking them to a comic, or was it always, this is a novel?
No, it was always a book. Okay. There's besides the fact that when I originally came up with this stuff, I was completely mired in Marvel and then Acclaim Comics. I was very much engaged and involved in work for hire of superhero characters. The industry back then wasn't really interested very much at all in crime fiction, much less sarcastic, suburban crime mystery, which is what I'm doing. So it wasn't even an avenue. It wasn't even a thought, to tell you the truth. I thought about it as a pilot for a TV show several times because I thought it was ready made for that. But ultimately, it always wanted to be a prose novel in my brain, and I just needed to get to the point. It only took me over 20 years. I wanted to get to the point where I was comfortable enough being able to write prose that I was happy with. That's really what it amounted to. I tried prose. I tried the first book a couple times in the last 20 years. I've tried other books a few times. I just always chucked them because I never liked what I did. Just in the trash folder of the laptop, whatever laptop it was. I've gone through so many laptops in the last 25 years. So it was just this time that I really made a concerted effort to finally finish a book manuscript. And as I was going along, I was becoming happier and happier with what I was doing. So I felt a little more confident in it. And then I got validation because I had an agent wanting to represent it, and they were excited about it. I had multiple publishers wanting to buy the manuscript. So that validated me tremendously in terms of my confidence for the work. When someone else wants to pay you for the work, then you feel better about it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Now,
go ahead.
Here's another question. Have you ever thought of doing an old school radio style audio book? So you have a full cast and the sound effects for it.
I would love to write. I would love to write an old style radio drama as an audio book, but not an old fashioned one. Not something like with the tone and style of the 30s or anything like that. I would just prefer to do one, mostly because it would be a new writing challenge for me, and I always try to embrace new stuff, new opportunities, and I always like to take difficult jobs that are things I've either done, but this is a challenging assignment. Can you tell 30 mini comics, 8 pages each? Yeah, I can do that. Like that was a Hot Wheels project I did 20 years ago. Can you do a 4-page story? Crap, that's a really bad number. 4 pages. All right, let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can do a 4-page story. I like that kind of stuff now more than anything.
See, and can I say, I kind of find it funny that you've been working on the novel for so long, and then by the time you get it to you've never had a thought for it in the comic book industry, but by the time just when it gets released, I feel like that's a time where the comic book industry had changed a great deal, where it wasn't just superheroes. You can literally go into a comic book store and pick up a comic pick a subject. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Literally.
So look, there's a prequel. There's 2 prequel stories I'd love to tell from the first book, and I've always imagined both of those as graphic novels. But I'm in no rush to really do them. I don't feel a burning need to tell those stories today. I'll tell those stories if the opportunity presents itself. If there's let's say the Suburban Dicks gets picked up and becomes a TV series, and there's more interest in novels and other ancillary product, then you have an opportunity to try to tell those kinds of stories. The book sales on their own, I don't think justify enough of an interest right now in trying to do that kind of thing, that kind of side thing. And who knows, maybe down the road I'd try it as a Kickstarter or something like that. I don't know. I'm at a stage in my life where I don't feel like working all that hard. And Kickstarters are a lot of work. I've now discovered that writing a book is not that hard for me. It's not that hard work. But promoting and selling a Kickstarter, that just sounds like just a pain in the ass.
Hey, that's why, look, not to promo another show that we've run, but that's why we do Kickstarting Comics, which is just a 15-minute segment for people that are kickstarting comics. That way, striking because I don't want to deal with Kickstarter either, Fabian. I understand. It looks like way too much of it.
It's wild, but I will say this though. I read a little bit on the synopsis of your outrage thing that's getting ready to come out.
Yeah, the print version is coming out like the next week. I think the print version is going to be out.
Is it the 25th or
thought it was the
15th.
29th, next week, the week after. Either way, let me put it this way: the slowboat from China finally docked in LA. That means that the print copies showed up on the U.S. shores. So Rocket Ship is the company that did the Kickstarter, and they're the ones that are going to be distributing the books. And I saw a copy of it, an advanced print edition copy at New York Comic Con. Tom Akel, the president and publisher of Rocket Ship, showed Riley Brown and I copies, and it looked gorgeous. The package, the book looks great. So I'm pretty happy about how that turned out, because it was an interesting project to go from digital vertical scroll comic, which actually Riley Brown lays out all the pages as regular comic book pages, and then he breaks it down in Photoshop into a vertical scroll. And I script to the vertical scroll, but what I script would not fit on a regular comic book page, because I'm filling in space between panels that we don't have on a comic book page. So ironically enough, when we decided to do the print edition, the two people that had the most work to do on it were myself, rescripting a lot of stuff, and Pat Brosseau, the letterer, who had to re-letter a lot of stuff because it simply wouldn't fit. You write more for the vertical scroll because you can take advantage of the space you put in between panel borders, and you don't have that with digital. So I actually rewrote, out of 140 pages, I probably did some kind of rewriting or actual wholesale rewriting of a page, probably on at least 70 pages, that work had to be done on it, Well,
all right. Well, Jesus, that's a lot.
That's a lot of rewriting.
I get irritated when I have to rewrite a 16
that it could have
bars.
just been what could have been one balloon on one panel, but on another page I had to trim all 4 panels or all 5 panels. I had to cut dialogue, so that did vary, but there were just as many pages that needed to be tweaked as pages that didn't need to be tweaked. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, my thing is like, so his power is what exactly? To jump through TVs and beat people who are
well, if he didn't like Quest's hat right now, he could reach through his screen and repixelate himself into a solid holographic form and rip the hat off his head. Conversely, if you're
wait, Fabian, hold on. Did you just call me Quest?
Yeah, did I?
I just thought that was fucking hilarious. I don't even care. I'm just the unknown factor. UF for short.
You called yourself the Quest 100 times.
No, I didn't. I said it's the questionnaire. I am the unknown factor. Have you been practicing the religion of hip hop over there, Fabian?
No, I apologize, Mr. Factor. I didn't know. So your parents gave you the as a first name and unknown as a middle name?
And then
coincidentally, their name was Factor. Okay, that's pretty good. All right.
And if you would see the family, you would understand.
I would understand. So, but to answer the question, here's a perfect example. Outrage could now come through my screen and smack me around for being an idiot, and then leave.
All right.
It ain't that.
So I'm not gonna lie. Is it only through digital mediums, or could it be printed? Because I swear on everything I love, if I had that man's power and it could go through printed, it
is only digital, because he is a solid holographic life form, and he can depixelate himself and travel through the internet and then repixelate himself wherever he shows up on your ISP, through your ISP on your computer or your phone or anything like that.
Go ahead.
The second season of Outrage is just finishing up in the next few weeks on Webtoon. Webtoon is like the planet's leading vertical scroll digital comic site, and all the chapters are free to read. So you can read the first season of Outrage, which is 26 chapters, today if you wanted to, for free. And the second season will take us from chapter 27 through chapter 56. and I think chapter 53 drops tomorrow. So we're almost done with the second season now. The hard cover and soft cover print editions that are coming out through Rocket Ship is the first season of Outrage. So it's the first 26 chapters of Outrage that introduced the character a few years ago on Webtoon.
And real quick, I just got to say, for everyone watching, tuning in, however you're tuning in, links to all that in the description. There's all kinds of links. I don't know how many links there are. There's a lot. It's Fabian. Fabian's done a lot. I don't want to think about how much I'm going to have to type out.
Somewhere.
Whatever. That's besides the point. But Fabian, don't make me change hats back.
I won't. No, please keep that hat on. Or at the very least, please don't put that other hat on. Okay.
Well, wait, man. Why? Can we touch on that character for just a brief moment? I know.
No, it's not about the character. It's about the art. I don't want to be looking at that art while I'm talking to you during this show.
I'm not sure whose art is on that particular hat.
There you go. I am.
Okay, so with that character, man, that being Deadpool, I'm just saying that character like it's a fucking forbidden word or some shit. Like whatever. You maybe want to know exactly who drew that, man. I don't know off the top of my head. It's gonna bug me, Fabian. I ain't gonna lie. We'll get into that.
I would prefer you be bugged.
Fair enough, man. Whatever. All right.
I'm sorry. I'm so amused right now.
Just out of curiosity, man. I mean, with everything you've done with that character, and to know that, did you ever think that character, like, do you ever think Wade Wilson would be that damn popular?
Depends on what you mean by that damn. He was popular from the second he came out.
Well, okay, yes, he was popular.
So that damn meaning a movie, meaning an end cap at Hot Topic and Spencer Gifts.
That.
No, you don't think of that. But you don't not think of it either. You just don't. You don't plan for that. But the character was so popular immediately that just a few months after his first and only appearance, Marvel decided to make him one of 5 trading cards that was getting blown into X-Force #1. So we realized right off the bat there was something about him that was pretty good.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
I have one of those trading cards somewhere. I'm not digging through everything, bro. I'm just unpacking. Right? I actually have.
But then the other side of the coin is, did I think that there was a plucky little Canadian boy in middle school somewhere who would one day want to star as the character in a feature film? The answer was no. I didn't think that. I did think that when I cast Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool in Cable and Deadpool #2, which came out in 2004. And Ryan Reynolds heard about it and became really curious and wanted to know more about the character, to the point where he signed on to do the Wolverine Origins movie in 2008. Yes, then I'm thinking in those terms. Then I'm thinking Marvel's starting to make movies. How do I generate more interest in these characters that I'm writing?
It's funny because I've read all of Cable and Deadpool, and it never connected with me right now that you're the one that made him curious about. That's phenomenal, Fabian. I don't even care.
Right.
Deadpool's a great character. I love the character.
You can Google the panel. That's what I like. What I love about the internet now is you can Google the panel in 2 seconds and it comes up on your screen.
That's what I was getting
Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool plus Ryan Reynolds plus Sharpay gets you that panel because it's the character describing himself as looking like Ryan Reynolds crossed with a Sharpay.
Yeah, and if you want to know 1,000 other things, I'm sure you can go see every interview Fabian's ever done. I'm sure they get into it extensively, right?
All right, but look, see, the thing is this: he's not asking the most important question though about Deadpool.
Oh, really? Right? Yeah, really? Yeah, that's a curious one, Hardaway. Go ahead.
This is the most crucial. What's his favorite candy bar?
Well, it would probably be my favorite candy bar, which is a Snickers. So it would probably be boring like that because I would just throw myself into it if I were randomly writing like that. But then again, the whole chimichanga joke started people assumed I like chimichangas, which I don't. So people assumed I like chimichangas just because I wrote him talking about chimichangas, you know. So yeah, it would probably be a Snickers bar because they satisfy you. And if you're out on the field, or if you're going to be holed up in a car overnight waiting to assassinate someone, you need a candy bar that's going to sustain you through the night.
This is what I'm talking about. See, look, Happy Peanuts. So
you got peanuts, you got nougat, you got caramel, you got chocolate.
Caramel.
It's not going to be like a Butterfinger.
Man, look.
It's not going to be a Butterfinger where the peanut brittle all gets stuck behind your teeth, and then you're going to be on a stakeout with that stuck behind your teeth all night long. Then you're like sticking your tongue in the back of your mouth and your fingers trying to get it all out. And then your target walks right by you and you're not even paying attention because you're busy trying to dig out peanut brittle from your mouth. So
I think you just created the greatest.
That's a pretty good scene. I think I like that scene. I may write that scene tomorrow because I'm actually working on a Deadpool comic right now.
Yes.
That's phenomenal. I love that. God. But beyond that, man, I'm curious, what was it like for you to initially then, I mean, you're working on the business side of comics, you know, you're doing all these different things, and then you end up going into writing. And you, like you said earlier, you know, it made you aware as far as everything. Were there differences in when you were working for, say, Marvel or DC, as opposed to when you were working for Acclaimed, or not Acclaimed? Shit.
No. You know what? No, I mean, honestly, the writing of the comic end of it has never really changed. I started working on staff at Marvel in 1985. I sold my first story that was printed in 1987. So it took me about a year and a half, between a year and a half, 2 years to get make my first sale and get my first comic published. And I wanted to write all along, but I also understood that my 9-to-5 job was what was paying my salary, and I had to make sure that I was good at it and rising up the ranks, because you never know. I could end up being a bad writer. I could have ended up being like, you know, I consider myself excellently mediocre, but I might have just been poorly mediocre, in which case then it would have just been a constant hassle and struggle to get work, which is what happens with the majority of us, you know.
How good a writer are you?
I was lucky. I was excellently mediocre, which allowed editors to justify hiring me, because they knew that they'd get an excellent level of mediocrity out of the work, which meant it was publishable, which was very important, because you have no idea how often you get work submitted to you publishable.
A marketable product.
If you're a writer that can make your editor's job a little bit easier, then that's a gold star for you, and it gets you more work, because editors have to do a lot of work to begin with. So the last thing in the world they want to be doing is hiring 5 or 6 writers, each of whom are making it harder for them to do their jobs. You want to hire people who make it easier to do your job, you know?
All I know
now,
excellently
have you ever
mediocre.
used that skill of yours to manipulate and or force an editor to buy you lunch?
No, I come from a day where we actually had expense accounts at Marvel, so we didn't have to worry about all of that. I had my own expense account as advertising manager and editor, so I could take them out if I felt like it. So no. Although it's a funny question, Jay, because there are always hilarious stories to tell about the freelancers who would show up to the office coincidentally at like 11:45 on any given morning, hoping upon hope that an editor would offer to buy them lunch. And we used to laugh about it in the office all the time. But having been on the other side of the coin myself as a freelancer now, as much as I've been an office guy, I've been a freelancer too. I totally get it. If you can get a free meal, you get a free meal.
I mean, yeah, I get that. I get that, man. I just look, excellently mediocre, I think, has just become one of my favorite new sayings. ever.
If
going
that's
on
not a
Tombstone.
T-shirt, can I make
Ever
it a
heard.
T-shirt?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
you can
really
make it a
has.
T-shirt for sure.
So,
I'm actually, I say it half jokingly, but I'm really serious about the importance of that to my career as a whole. You know, the importance. I've never been an award nominated or an award winning writer. I've never been the worst writer on a publishing roster, right? So what does that mean? That means that you're somewhere in the middle, and where you are in that middle range varies from issue to issue, quite frankly, right? And editor to editor, and penciler to penciler, because a penciler can make you look great, or a penciler can make your story look like crap, you know. So to be excellently mediocre means that within the range that I fall in, I have always consistently striven to attain the higher. so
okay.
I,
So
I am at the very, very cusp of
to that
being
note,
a beast.
I don't want to make you fill out a 40-page questionnaire and not touch on it at all. And I don't feel like we have yet. So I want to touch on the excellent, mediocre. And I think the MCU has always managed for every film to at least be excellently mediocre.
Yes, that's
Right?
actually a great
All right.
example.
So I want to know, the list is too long. Can you just give me a couple that you really think did a terrible job living up to the comic?
Moon Knight was just awful. I thought Moon Knight. Hold on, I got a document which is my MCU ranking. My current MCU ranking has Moon Knight at the very bottom. It is ranked 36. And Thor: Love and Thunder is ranked 35. And Iron Man 2 is ranked 34. So the list will vary a little depending on mood, but right now, Moon Knight and Thor: Love and Thunder, I think, are the two worst things that Marvel Studios has put out.
Well, no, let's take it more general.
Conversely, at the top of the list, consistently since it came out, has been Captain America: Winter Soldier for me, which I think is almost a perfect movie. For the genre that it's telling a story in. And my second favorite is Avengers Endgame, which I thought was pretty colossal, a pretty remarkable movie for what they had to accomplish, you know?
Yeah, as far as the setup that it took. Now, take that outside the MCU for me, Fabian. Like you said, there's too many to list that just didn't live up to the comic book, right? What films that were comic book films do you look at and go, and just want to walk away?
I have
Pretty
no
much
clue what the fuck just happened. I thought this
all
man
the
just,
X-Men
like,
movies except for the second X-Men movie, the first Wolverine movie, Venom was useless. I haven't even seen the second Venom.
Second Venom was way better in my opinion, but that's just my opinion.
Was it? Oh, I haven't even seen it yet. I haven't seen Morbius. There's a bunch of the DC movies which were not well done. I liked Nolan's first movie. I like Nolan's second movie a lot more when I first saw it than I do now. And I did not like Dark Knight Rises. Was that the third one? Not a big fan of the Zack Snyder films at all. So the Batman Superman movie was just painful for me. And the Green Lantern movie was really, really just bad. In a good way, but really bad.
How ironic is that then?
They created some of the best jokes.
Well, no,
I didn't like Aquaman either. I thought Aquaman sucked. I mean, I didn't suck. I gave Aquaman a C, which wasn't excellent mediocrity. It was just mediocrity.
See, it's not Blank Man. That's the problem.
Blank Man. I remember that one, but I don't remember seeing it. Was that one of the Wayans brothers?
Yeah, that's a throwback.
Dude, you're talking to the guy who edited the Meteor Man comic in the early 90s from Robert Townsend's superhero movie that he did like in 92, 93. The Meteor Man.
That was one of my favorite movies.
I edited that comic book.
Nice.
How crazy is it, man? Like, does that ever, when you get somebody's work as far as interneting capacity like that, do you ever feel bad having to give them notes from the perspective of a writer? Okay.
No. If I'm an editor, my job is to try to make your story better. It took me a little while to learn that, because for too long as an editor, I was trying to make your story better by making it my story, and that's not what an editor should be doing. An editor should be trying to make your story better. So how else are you going to get someone to make their story better unless you're telling them what you think they need to do to make their story better? You know, that's the job. That's like saying, do you feel like going up to the plate and not holding a bat? Like you have to hold a bat to go to the plate, because you got to swing at the ball, right? So, unless you're Carlos Beltran, and then you just watch third strike go by you in the division series. But that's besides the point. I'm not even a Mets fan. So I feel like it's incumbent on you to be honest, be truthful. Try not to be as blunt as I usually am, but always try to tell them the truth, because anything else is doing a disservice to them and their story.
Fair enough. I was just curious because, like, I could see, I didn't know even if, like, earlier on, if there were times where you were like, well, man, I don't want to hurt their feelings, but I know this is, like, this really needs changed kind of thing. But I can understand just.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying, but you're presupposing that you're talking to someone who cares about human feelings, and I just don't. I care about the work.
Apathetic.
I care about the work, and I care about getting the work done, and I care about getting the work done well. So whatever it takes to get to that point is what I'm going to do to get to that point. I'm not. I'm an odd person, because I'm incredibly optimistic and positive, but I'm also incredibly cynical and sarcastic and blunt. So I kind of merge the two.
Oh,
I live my life. An editor at Marvel one time said something to me early on in my writing that stuck with me for the rest of my life. And we got in a knockdown, drag out fight arguing about something in the story. And it was probably something so stupid, but we both were sticking to our guns and fighting like crazy, loud, yelling at each other. This was after hours in the office, like 6:30 in the office. And we finally find a compromise that works for us after almost a half an hour of arguing with each other. And as I'm getting ready to leave, he says, "You know what, Fabe? You're the kind of guy that walks into someone's office, says fuck you to their face, and then after you leave, the guy goes, he's a pretty good guy." And I said, that works for me. Because I think I'm a pretty good guy, but I'm also an ass. So I stick with it.
You see,
I can
Chris
relate,
Webby would
man.
say that you're just honest. You just keep it 100 with everybody.
Yeah, but you gotta be mature and show some sense of compassion and professionalism. And honesty is only as good as using it to get what you want out of the other person.
My grandma says it best. My grandmother says it best. She goes like this: look, God said you had to grow old. No one ever said you had to grow up. You can do whatever you want. They tell you can do whatever you want, but you were forced to grow old, not grow up. So
I like that one. That's good. I've stuck to that.
Well, no.
There's a lot more white here, and yet
whatever.
No maturity.
You ain't got favorite colors, baby. And don't tell me you stuck to that because you're not 6 years old. If you didn't grow up, what's your favorite color? Yeah,
a rainbow. I just assumed it was a rainbow.
I really don't have a favorite color.
Yeah, you don't have a favorite or least favorite color. I know because I asked.
I find that odd, though. I mean, I'm going to be 61 years old in a month. I mean, seriously, what the hell should I have a favorite color at my age? Like, it's like, what difference does it make?
All right, well, fine then. Favorite dinosaur?
Oh, Triceratops. Totally. Since I was a little kid, that hasn't changed. Since I was a little kid, we had this Viewmaster. You guys may be too young to know the Viewmaster.
Oh, no. Yeah. Hold on.
We had the Viewmaster.
We don't talk about that.
A 3D, almost like a sculpture, clay sculpture, 3D dinosaur one, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Triceratops were fighting in it, and ever since then, I was like 7 years old. I'm flipping through it. I'm wanting the Triceratops to win. Get him with your horns. Get him with your horns in the underbelly. And that was it. It was always the Triceratops.
So that's what it is.
So
when you were 7.
So
look, when he was 7, he didn't know what he disregarded colors because he became way too fascinated with the Triceratops.
There you go.
Because he said,
right. Sure, when I was
the story, he's sticking with it.
I'm sure, Mr. Factor, that when I was 7, I had a favorite color, but that's because I was 7. Okay.
Hey man, you said not 6 years old in the questionnaire, so I'm just going by what you.
Oh, did I? Was that my answer? Look, I was pretty close. I stuck with it, didn't I? Yeah.
So here's the thing, though.
I did answer that, didn't I? I'm not 6 years old was literally my answer to your question about what's your favorite color.
Yeah, and you said your favorite cartoons are Johnny Quest and what was the second
Speed
one?
Racer.
Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go.
Speed Racer. Because look, I'm a kid from the '60s, so when I came to this country in '66, Johnny Quest was on, and then Speed Racer was on a year or two after that. I also liked the Spider-Man cartoon a lot when I was a little kid, in the one from the '60s, the 2-season one from the '60s.
My daughter started with that.
Answered, and I didn't even think of it, because anytime you ask me my favorite cartoons, I always think of action adventure stuff. But literally, my favorite cartoon, because it's one of my favorite characters on the planet, is Bugs Bunny. So I really should have said Bugs Bunny, but I don't think of Bugs Bunny as a cartoon. I think of it more as a religion. So.
All right. So let me ask
enough.
you.
Hold on. No. We got to bring this up. The whole thing is like when you brought up when you said Johnny Quest and Speed Racer, I'm much older than you. I was like, hold on. I watched all of that, every last bit of it. Like I remember Speed Racer, 2:00 in the morning, sitting there just eating a bowl of cereal. Like, yeah, Racer X is the shit.
Racer X was the shit. He was so cool. He was so cool.
He was. I got his first volume comic.
Do you? That was from the first comic. Wait, who? That wasn't First Comics. That was Now Comics. Now Comics in the '80s did a Racer X comic and Speed Racer comic. Yeah, I was working at Marvel, and I always wished I could have written something for them because I really love Speed Racer. I actually wanted to do an entire issue of Speed Racer from Spritle and Chim Chim's perspective when they're stuck inside the trunk. So the whole book, the whole issue would have been the two of them stuck inside the trunk. So sometimes they'd be stopped, so they're talking to each other, not knowing what's going on. Other times they know the car's moving, then it's weaving, and then of course there'd be the time where the car's tumbling in midair, because they always used to cut on the cartoon. They'd always used to cut to inside the trunk, and Spritle and Chim Chim's heads would be right next to each other, spinning around in circles because the car was tumbling in midair, and the two of them would have this Japanese anime mouths going ah, as they're spinning around. So that would have been 22 pages of that.
Yeah, it would have been great. It would have been hilarious.
Yeah, but, I mean, look, not to like,
yeah. So,
well, that makes me
Johnny Quest was my shit and whatnot. But yeah.
Well, no, that makes me think very much of the movie Buried, which stars Ryan Reynolds, funnily enough, but it's him like in a coffin. You know what I mean? And it's
I never saw that one.
Dude, it's honestly, it's a phenomenal. Like I really enjoyed it. And what a hard sell. You know what I mean? As far as to do that, right?
Yeah, as a script, as a movie to sell. Are you kidding me? For sure.
Yeah.
But I've gotten claustrophobic as I've gotten older, and I never thought of like that as entertainment. Watching a guy trapped inside a coffin for an hour and a half just did not really seem to scream fun time at the movies to me.
I mean, I enjoyed it, is all I'll say. You know what I mean? And I think I just think of, because you're talking about writing about them being stuck in a trunk for a whole issue, it just kind of relates because it's that whole claustrophobia thing. And I wonder, it just brought that movie to my mind, man. Because
I gotta watch it. I'm gonna watch it eventually. Maybe I need to watch it like outside in the open air. So, I'll take my laptop out to the backyard and I'll watch it or I'll go to the edge of the Grand Canyon and watch it from there.
Just don't fall off, Fabian. Shit.
Hey, it's not funny though. I actually went to the Grand Canyon for the first time a few years ago with my family, and I was honestly stunned that you could walk right to the edge of the rocks. Like, I'm not kidding. Literally, just walk right to the edge of the rocks. You actually can scrabble down the edge of some of it because it's not a sheer cliff face on. There's like there's pockets and serrated edges all the way down, and I was kind of like mind boggled by that because I just thought, how many people slip and fall? How many people jump because they want to commit suicide? It's like it just seems like too easy to fall off that cliff, and because along with the claustrophobia as I've gotten older, I've also manifested a greater fear of heights than I ever used to have. I used to have no fear of heights whatsoever. Now I get vertigo-ish. So I was not getting close. And my daughter and my son especially, were just going right to the edge. I'm like, stay back, guys, stay back. Everyone back. Get away from the cliff. Get away.
Do you want to keep it a mystery? Hold on. Do you want to keep it a mystery or do you want to know?
Know what?
How many people walk off the edge?
Oh, you Google that quickly? How many people on a yearly basis, on annual basis, walk off the edge of the Grand Canyon?
About 12.
Yeah, that's a little less than I would have expected.
A little.
Maybe the pandemic has kept. No. Maybe the pandemic has kept people from jumping off the cliff.
No, hold on. That's all deaths. That includes natural causes, medical problems, suicide, heat, drowning,
what?
and traffic crashes. On average, 2 to 3 deaths per year are from falls over the rim.
There you go. I did read something about, and this was, I think, a true story. A father taking a picture, and he backed up off the cliff as he was taking the picture, and that that's mind-boggling if that's true. Like, that's a pretty crappy way to go. But then again, he might have gotten some great shots on
shots.
If somebody's just going to recover that man's camera.
Keep that finger on that camera.
Can you imagine?
I hope it was on set on roll so you could just get the whole fall.
Jesus!
Oh my God! It'll be like what was that movie that was shot in first person?
The Blair Witch Project.
That wasn't a movie. That was.
Wait, there was some Henry movie, Phil Henry.
Yeah. Something Henry.
Something Henry, and it was like a first-person point of view movie. It's like you're watching a video game for 2 hours. Who needs?
Yeah, it's like you're watching a video game. That would be like the picture, whatnot. Him just going, and you just see one hand.
See one hand flailing.
Yeah.
This is getting really morbid and kind of fucked up. But I do want to say that number was way, way, way lower than I ever expected it to be, right? But,
I thought it was more than 12.
I would have thought it was significantly more, especially with the pandemic, that more people just said, fuck it, yeet, and just kind of jumped over it. I ain't going to lie. I'm pretty sure way more people jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. Now, mind you, there are a lot more people right there. Yeah, the thing is, it's a
little remote, though. You got to go a ways to get to the Grand Canyon. I mean, it's not,
Yeah, the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm sure walk and.
Yeah, I'm sure bridges. I know the the George Washington Bridge, has had a lot of jumpers in the last few years.
So I mean, I get that, but I'm curious. Another thing that kind of makes me curious, dude, is someone that's so in the comic book industry, Fabian. How do you not have favorite characters in any capacity, or least favorite characters in the current industry?
I do. Did I not answer that on the questionnaire?
No, you didn't. You said none.
Was I snarky?
No, you just said
I have
none.
favorite characters. But then for me, it's parsing it out between my favorite characters to write after 35 years as a professional writer versus my favorite characters that I grew up reading. So I have to separate myself in my brain from professional writer Fabian and 12-year-old fanboy Fabian, you know? And so 12-year-old fanboy Fabian read the Avengers, and he read Spider-Man, and he read Fantastic Four, and he read Captain America, and my brother got Defenders, so I read Defenders. I followed Dave Cockrum from Legion of Superheroes to X-Men. I followed Jim Starlin from Captain Marvel to Warlock, you know. So that's a different thing. So my favorite characters are Spider-Man and Hawkeye and Ben Grimm and the Vision, all characters that I read growing up. You know, but as a writer, my favorite characters are Captain America and Deadpool and Speedball and the Thunderbolts characters and Tim Drake and Dick Grayson as a writer. You know, so it really varies depending on how you're asking me to answer the question. You know?
Okay, fair enough. I'm curious.
No. Here's the ultimate question
I'm curious
Fabian.
in that, man. Is there a character within the major two, that being DC and Marvel, that you haven't gotten a chance to pin that you really would?
Well, I've been lucky enough that in one capacity or another, because of the nature of the projects I've worked on and the amount of time I've been doing it, I've written just about every character from Marvel or DC that I grew up reading or that I'm interested in. That being said, I never got a chance to do a monthly run on Captain America or Doctor Strange, and I really would have liked that. I've never gotten to do, I could have written Tim Drake's Red Robin book for another 10 years and been happy because I love the character. I'd love to write Nightwing because Dick Grayson's my favorite character since I was a little kid. I always wanted to write a Hawkman monthly series. So, you know, there are characters I would have loved a chance to write Superman monthly for a year or two. That would have been a lot of fun too. So yeah, there's characters that I wished I'd had an opportunity to work on, you know, because I had stories I wanted to tell with them and their characters that interest me as a writer.
Okay, Hardaway, quit pressing buttons. I don't know what you pressed, but you went away there for.
I didn't press nothing. Something just put me on hold. Like my phone just went on hold for some reason. Don't tell me. Man, I wish I was outraged right now.
What is Modoc calling you or some shit?
I know my shit's on Do Not Disturb, and
well,
somebody calls me.
If it's
somebody called me, something happened.
No. If Modoc is calling you, bro, it don't matter if it's on Do Not Disturb or not. He'll get through to you, right? That's all I'm saying. But you had something before I interrupted you, so proceed.
I actually have quite a few questions out of nowhere. Look, one. Do you think Deadpool should have a Pokemon? And if he would have one, which one would it be?
I couldn't name you 3 Pokemon if you had a gun to my head. All right. I'm 60. I am 60 years old. You think I give a flying rat's ass about Pokemon?
No. But
Deadpool probably would have. No, but Jay, here's the real answer. Deadpool probably would have one. I'd have to do some research first to know what they are.
Wait. I swear. Oh.
What?
Is there a Pokemon with big boobs? That's the one Deadpool would like.
Oh my God, the pony. No.
There you go. That's an interesting knockoff. That's not a Marvel licensed product, is it?
I got that from Japan, man. Don't tell nobody.
Yeah.
Fabian.
What a shock. A Japanese knockoff.
Hey, look. I could order it on Amazon. I found that
manufacturer in Japan not paying a licensing fee. Wow, what a shock.
You contact Jeff Bezos. He's the one selling them on Amazon. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Well, he's smart enough to make a nickel off of everything, isn't he? Everything on the planet.
I seen it and I was like, that's phenomenally classic, and it'll be on my couch here, like the back of my couch in a while, because I just thought it was funnier than hell. But at the same time, that is very much the first thing I thought. That's not officially fucking licensed. Are you shitting me? So there was part of me that kind of felt bad for in that, but I'm like, there's no other way I can get that. So on that note, man, what do you think of like how much that happens where you're getting things knocked off, bro? Like I'll go to like a mall and walk around and there's some dude sitting there selling t-shirts and I'm like, bro, you printed all those. Ain't none of those.
I think it's pretty shitty because it's taking it's not just taking money out of a corporation's pocket, which nobody really should give a rat's ass about, but by taking money out of a corporation's pocket, you're also taking money out of the people who create the product. So if you're buying knockoff stuff, then you're not contributing to the very creators of the content that you claim to like so much in order to justify buying the product to begin with. So if you really like Deadpool, then you should want the Deadpool creators to get something out of that.
I have everything else. I have Deadpool is licensed, I'll say, but you know what I mean? Like I got a shitload of shit in here that's licensed.
Yeah, and there's some porno stuff I'm sure you have that's not licensed, and that's understandable because they don't have they're not going to make a licensing agreement for Deadpool dildos. So you just gotta roll with it.
Hey, look, I needed my lady Deadpool
they'll call it
body doll.
It's under fan art, they'll just call it fan art and call it a day. That's all.
Yeah,
they were like, no, look.
All I know is on the note of Deadpool dildos, I don't know if there is a Deadpool dildo. I don't, but I did somehow run across the thing of like when the Avengers was huge, they released a thing of sex toys for every Avenger, from like a pocket pussy for Scarlet Widow or
did they really?
Black Widow.
That's pretty funny.
There's like the hammer for Thor. There's like one that's green for the Hulk. Dude, I seen them and I looked and I was like, are you fucking... Comics became so mainstream, they're porn toys now.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Characters became so mainstream.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
They've made plenty of porn parodies, haven't they, off of all the movies?
No, well, fuck.
I thought they had Captain America videos like that when in the 60s and 70s.
Well, look, all I want to know, Fabian,
I'm sure people dressed up like it.
What I just want to know, Fabian, is what's your opinion, man, from starting back when you did to see that comics are more generally accepted. Like before this interview even started, bro, you're like, oh, did you like Deadpool in the first and second movie? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and I get that. I get that because I'll be wearing like a Deadpool shirt or something.
It's a weird question because on the one hand, you really don't have to endure newspaper headlines that say Pam, Pow, Zoc comics aren't just for kids anymore, which is all we ever used to get when I broke in the 80s, right? So the fact that it's mainstreamed itself, the characters are so well known now, and the comics that they derive from are now accepted is wonderful. But for the same token, mainstream superhero comics are selling 50% or less than they used to sell 30, 40 years ago when comics weren't accepted. So
why do you
tell me, which would you rather have if you were a writer, an artist, or a company? Would you rather have 700,000 sales for your monthly X-Men title and people thinking comics are for nerds, or would you rather have 80,000 sales for your X-Men title? Everyone tell you that comics are cool,
That's a valid, and I'm curious, man. We went into this with several different creators in past episodes, and I think the general consensus among everyone I've spoke to is the fact that comics are no longer like. Look, if you want to go and buy comics on a monthly basis, you better be taking your ass to your local comic book store because you ain't gonna find them in Kroger, you ain't gonna find them in the convenience stores or the newspaper stands like you used to, right? Yeah. Short of that. And it going away in that market, do you think there's something that's negatively affected comic book sales so much? I mean, because obviously that did, when they ain't on the fucking magazine shelf at Walmart and Kroger and all that.
It's honestly too long of an answer and too long of a discussion that there are multiple factors that have led to the lack of locations for mainstream Marvel DC superhero comics. That being said, there are more locations now for trade paperbacks, hardcover books, manga than there ever used to be before, right? So while the mainstream direct market sales have dropped and the retail outlets have been cut by 70% compared to what it was in the early 90s. Conversely, you have more bookstores carrying comic book product than ever used to back then. And you have more product for those bookstores, not just mainstream, not just Marvel DC stuff, but all publishers and manga publishers. So it's an apples and an orange thing. Comics right now are $1 billion industry. That doesn't mean Marvel and DC are $1 billion industry in terms of their publishing sales. Their licensing is doing better than ever. Marvel's licensing and consumer products is better than it ever used to be, right? They're making more money off of film and television than they ever used to. So it's a question that has 1,000 answers to it because it's all one. Each answer is its own piece of the jigsaw puzzle that forms the entire picture.
That's a very, very fair answer, Fabian. I'm curious do you think there's something that could be done to, and I don't even necessarily mean to just increase comic book sales, but to make it to where there's a more younger generation reading comics at a greater capacity? I think
there's more younger people reading comics right now than there have been for the last 10, 15 years. They're just not reading Marvel and DC comics. Or if they're reading the characters, they're reading it in different formats other than regular comic books. They're reading it in graphic novel or book format. DC's got a wonderful line of book product for kids ages 5, 6, 7, 8. Marvel's doing more and more content in non-traditional comic formats that are intended for those people. So at the end of the day, the direct market chose to alienate kids from coming to their stores, and the publishers chose to alienate kids from buying their product by continuing to raise the prices the way they did. So I think that the traditional comic book format will never reclaim a young audience ever. I think that day is long gone. And in fact, as everyone keeps aging up who is buying the traditional format comics, you'll see a dwindling return on those people buying traditional comics. So there may not even be traditional comics the way we think of them in 25 years. But that doesn't mean people won't be reading comic book material. It just won't be a comic book. It'll be digital, it'll be book, it'll be holographic, it'll be whatever it is in 25 years. But the regular 32 page with 20 pages of story, soft paper, soft cover, is going to go by the way of the dinosaur, just because its price point got to the point where it priced itself out of a reader's interest, a casual reader's interest, I should say.
I agree wholeheartedly, because I really don't want to spend $5 and then spend another $5 and then another $5, and then by the time I get done reading a whole series, $500 in debt. What I'm saying?
The odd thing is that if they're charging you $4 or $5 for a comic, and the story they're telling is not self-contained but takes 6 issues to tell the story, that means that, let's say you're spending $30 on that. Ironically, the trade paperback that has all 6 of those issues is going to cost $18. So you're, from a financial standpoint, you're better off just waiting for the trade, because that's how they're being created now. They're being written and drawn for the trade.
And to be real honest, too, I like trades for the fact that they don't take up as much room. You don't have to bag and board them. They just sit on a bookshelf. And that may be honestly just something with age with me. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, like, I love my comic books. Don't get me wrong. I had an
Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn, old man.
I mean, for real. But
you kids, get out of this store.
I was that kid. I got no problem with that.
I don't buy comics anymore. I don't think I've bought an original. I don't think I've bought a Marvel or DC comic in 5 years.
Not even a graphic?
It's been a long time. No, occasionally I'll buy trade paperbacks, but I read almost everything digitally now.
Yeah.
I read almost everything I read on my iPad. Because because I started to declutter my life, is what it amounted to. So I got rid of half my comic collection, but I still have 45 long boxes downstairs in my basement. I had over 100, I think. So I had to get rid of a lot of stuff, And I'm going to get rid of the other half real soon too. So that's going to be gone soon too.
Jesus, Fabian, that's a lot of fucking long boxes.
Well, you got to remember, I got like every publisher's comics for free for 10 years.
Can we let's cut to a particular comic you went into though that I was like, you wrote Super Pro, right?
I was asked by Marvel to help them out and work on this comic book that is a licensing deal with the NFL. So after several writers struggled to get work done that the NFL would approve, they asked me if I would do it, and I didn't want to do it. I said no, and they told me I kind of had no choice, so I had to do it.
It's funny, man.
Even though as a freelance writer, I do have a choice, but as a staff employee, I didn't have much choice. So I wrote 5 total issues of NFL Super Pro, a special project, and then 4 comic books, and that was it.
It's funny because I can't tell you. I took I remember taking those to like grade school and reading them, Fabian, and having them, and they were one of the few comics out of everything I brought that garnered other people's attention because of the whole NFL aspect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like anytime I was reading.
It was a weird. It was the whole project was a mess from the beginning. The whole thing was a mess.
It's just funny though because of the fact that the NFL was in it. It like made the kids like be like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. It's football too, as opposed to where if I had like an X-Men or Spider-Man or anything else I was reading, they were like nerd. But for some reason, this one comic, it garnered more attention. It's very odd to me.
That was the idea, but it didn't play out because there was not enough publicity behind it. It didn't have an art style that was really attractive to 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. So it wasn't. It was a flawed project from the get-go, from start to finish. But it was a really good incentive check because the first issue, the bookshelf format edition and issue number 1 of the comics sold really well. So, all I care about is the check I got. I live with the albatross of that book around my neck for my entire career, and I don't care because I got a nice 5-figure check for it.
Fair enough. And like I said, man, I mean, it was honestly, as a young kid, like when I was younger, bro, it was one of the few things that like, it was one of the only comics I didn't get picked on for. You know what I mean, Fabian? So you got that too.
I hear you.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't. Yeah, it was pretty much the opposite when I was growing up. Man, you're reading comics, goddamn nerd. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. Can I say I love your list of favorite films, man? I got to bring up Mark Verheiden real quick. Based on the fact that one of your favorite films is Alien, he's the one we've just had him on as a previous guest. He did all the initial Dark Horse stuff for the Aliens and Predators. I love that that's your choice, though. I want to know how many sequels can you name that were better than the original besides that one? And
not many at all. Captain America: Winter Soldier was a better movie than Captain America: First Avenger. Star Trek II is a better movie than Star Trek: The Motion Picture. We're running low. Well, Avengers Endgame probably is better than Avengers. But even so, I thought I separate Alien and Aliens. I don't even pay attention to the sequels after that. They don't count. But I separate Alien and Aliens because they were 2 very different movies with very different tones and very different approaches to them, which is one reason why I thought they were both so equally enjoyable. I mean, Ridley Scott was doing a horror movie in space, and that's not what James Cameron was really doing. He was doing an adventure military movie against monsters in space, and so I love both movies, but Aliens really caught me off guard when I watched it the first time. I didn't expect that that's what I was going to be going to see, and as a result, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought for its time, it was just really excellently structured and paced, excellently acted, had humor, had tragedy, had pathos, had action, had everything in it. So it was a cool movie.
Yeah, that's honestly still one of my favorite films. Like, well, both of them, in all honesty, as far as the 2 Alien films. I just wish they'd do an Alien versus Predator film, right? So let me ask, on a note of versus, man, you ever wanted to just take 2 characters, one from Marvel and one from DC, and be like, I need to write a run on this?
No, never thought of that. That goes back to the question you asked earlier. It's
Man, see, I
it's
knew that was
brain
gonna.
juice. It's brain juice that's going down the drain. It's not brain juice that is nutritious and you're drinking and enjoying the taste of it.
Well, would you waste it
So
for
I
the?
haven't really done it. I mean, if I would love to have had an opportunity to work on those Marvel DC amalgam things that they were doing back then in the 90s, but I was running a claim at the time, so I missed the boat on that. If I thought about it, I'm sure that I could come up with several combos that would be a lot of fun to write. But again, I didn't give it. I don't give it much thought. I would love to have gotten a chance to do an Avengers Justice League crossover story. I'd love to. I'd love to do a Superman Batman. I'm sorry, Superman Captain America. Story, but not to the point where I've thought about it. In terms of what is the story, how do you structure it, how do you break it down? Nah. You gotta understand. You gotta understand. I consciously made a decision to stop thinking that much about characters that the companies owned a long time ago. So it's been well over 10, almost 15 years since I've actively tried to pitch Marvel or DC on something. If they call me, I'm always interested to hear what they're offering, but I don't go out of my way to pitch them things. Occasionally, I'll send them a pitch for something, but I haven't even done that in about 5 years. Because there's just there's no gap there. There's nothing usually that's worth doing. You're working for page rate. You're not even getting incentives anymore because the books don't sell well enough. You're giving away your ideas to a company that's going to own them and then turn them into into $1 billion profit movie, and you're going to get barely bupkis for it. So it's not worth that level of effort.
What do you think of that,
Right,
man? That aspect, as far as you're giving these ideas away, and then they're getting turned into film. And the people
you're
that
not
actually
giving them away because you're being paid to do them,
but you're not
and
getting.
back in the day,
Yeah.
it was worth it because you were getting paid really well to do them because the books were selling really well, so you got incentive checks. All right, and I have a business participatory stake in Deadpool that I get money from Marvel for the licensing aspect of it, and from the when a movie gets made. But every deal that every creator has is different, and that's unfortunate, but that's true. So my deal is probably better than creator X's, but my deal isn't as good as creator Y's. And actually creator M doesn't even have a deal. So it's difficult to talk about because there's no comparables. I don't know what that guy's deal is or that gal's deal is, and they don't know what mine is. So it's hard to talk about it because you don't know how badly we're all getting shafted, to what level and what degree we're all getting shafted. But at the end of the day, I talk about it from a practical standpoint because I understand that that's what it is. I understand that's what it was. I knew that all along going in. Mark Grunwald told me one time, a very long time ago, don't create something new for their toy box when they have so many toys in the sandbox that no one's using already. And this was the executive editor at Marvel Comics who loved Marvel Comics, but he understood that you create new things to a certain degree, but understand that you're creating it for them, not for yourself.
All right. So on that same note, well, not same note, on a different note, because I know you're not trying to waste any brain power on what is some character that's already been created and whatnot. So we'll just scrap all that whole idea and go with character archetypes. A personality that hasn't been done yet in a book yet as a main protagonist.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think that there's an answer to that because I think everything's been done one way or the other, especially superhero
Well, I'm at one
comics.
something you haven't done. I should have rephrased that. Something you haven't done.
Oh, I've written every freaking character there is. So I've written every kind of archetype there is.
Yeah, that's can I say Hardaway?
I really have.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's an archetype I haven't written. The archetype I haven't written enough that I would have been interested in writing more of would be the magician, like Doctor Strange or something like that. More supernatural or magical based. I never got enough of an opportunity to do that, and I always knew that I had stories I could tell in that tone and that style. So all I've done is just channel those thoughts and that creative energy into new stuff that I'm developing now. Two of the three things I'm developing now, non-comic related on my own, are one's a supernatural crime series, and one is a supernatural horror western series.
Ooh,
so
I'm interested in that one.
That's all going. That's all stuff that I've been percolating in my brain for a long time that didn't have outlets, and is now starting to find an outlet in what I'm developing.
Now, when you say series, what medium are you planning for these?
Prose right now.
Okay.
Prose books.
So you really just at this point, man, do you feel like you're going to start turning more to writing prose novels as opposed to comic books, or you think you'll always have that comic book writer in you?
I hope I'll always be writing comic books to one extent or another. But you also got to realize over the last 10, 15 years, comic books have actually been a smaller percentage of my yearly income in comparison to any other kind of writing I was doing. So since like 2000, man, not 15 years, but certainly since around 2010, 2009, there's not a single year where comics were the largest percentage of my yearly income. I'm aging out. You age out of your editorial contact base. You age out of your interest level. You age out of ideas or stories you want to tell or characters that you have. For me, I've always looked for new things to do, so it's always a little harder to get as enthusiastic about things I've done already. You ask me about writing a comic, and I've written 1,000 comics. So writing comic number 1,001, no matter what, just isn't as exciting to me because I've done it already. But Jay mentions a radio drama or an audio drama, and I perk up, go, hey, that's interesting. That'd be kind of cool to do. So prose, I've got to write 2 prose books. In comparison to having written 1,000 comics, you do the math, and of course my interest is going to lie there because it was a tremendous amount of fun, and I got lucky and it happened to pay really, really well because I got to sell the two books under a contract that went to auction because multiple publishers were bidding on it. That's not to say that that's going to happen with the next manuscript or the manuscript after that, but again, like I said earlier in the show, I'm at an age where I don't necessarily need to do it for X amount of money. I will need to do it because it's something I need to do. That's where I'm headed.
And I think, man,
I gotta warn you guys. I gotta do a time out for a second. I just realized I only got 2% left on my laptop.
Oh, really? Hey, that's fine. That's fine, because I just wanted to say I think that's something that's important as far as making a great lighter. And Fabian, it has been a pleasure. I hope to have you back on this quest.
It'll be my pleasure, guys. It was a lot of fun. You guys are really fun to go back and forth with. It was good. And you asked me some really enjoyable questions, too.
Well, I'm glad we didn't do that part of your job you dread so much then, Fabian. But let me tell you, for everyone out there watching it, listening, right? If you have enjoyed this interview with Fabian, right, I want you to either send him 1, a good burger, 2, some good sushi, or 3, right? I don't even know what the hell this is, but Captain Action and all his costumes, right? Whatever that is.
Oh, look it up.
Go Google it.
Oh, yeah, we're going to Google. You're going to have to Google that.
Right, I will later, whatever. I had to Google how to pronounce his last name. Don't give me no more shit.
Mr. Factor, you will look at Captain Action and go, holy shit, I wish I were older. Because that means I would have been able to play with it when I was a kid.
And also, Fabian, I love the fact that you call me Mr. Factor. That shit's fucking hilarious. I love it.
The name of his next album is going to be Mr. Factor.
No, I swear, it's going to be my next album.
Mr. Factor finds a Deadpool dildo.
I hope I never do.
All right. But before you run out of power and whatnot, can we get you to say this is Fabian? You're listening to
No, not
question.
you're listening to. Tune into the questionnaire every Wednesday at 7.
Yeah, that is what
Wednesday
he
at
said.
7.
Yeah, Wednesday at 7.
This
Anytime.
is Fabian Nicieza. I just started, Jay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ready?
Yes.
Don't say anything, Jay. This is Fabian Nicieza. Tune in every Wednesday at 7 o'clock to the questionnaire.
And it's been a pleasure. And look, if you haven't enjoyed this interview, apparently you just need to send Fabian his wife.
What the fuck? Oh, you're scary.
He's the one that
as,
answered the
mythological
question.
creature.
All right. And that's how he answered the question. I don't know what else to say. It's what he did. Right?
Is that why you were rubbing your head like that? Because it looked like you were scared to say that.
Well, no, it was because I was confused. Like, okay, that's your answer. So I guess that's who I'll send after you. I hope, Fabian, if anybody does send your wife after you because they didn't like this interview, I hope for your sake she's in a positive mood. But this has been the questionnaire episode. Some number, man. I don't know. Just go back and watch the rest. It's been phenomenal. We've had some phenomenal
Christmas
guests
time
on.
around here.
Yeah, it's
now,
around
I guess,
Christmas.
apparently.
That's why I got Charlie Brown up in that bitch, right? That's what's up, right? But like,
Take care,
subscribe.
guys. I'm out of power.
Give that
Juice
thumbs
is
up.
gone.
And have a good night, y'all.
You too.
Peace.